Hey Reader Pops, Haley here, welcome back to the channel. Ryan's playing video games in the background. I've never done it while he's here, but I'm gonna go through all the books that I read in July, which I'm just gonna warn you now, I really went hardcore through my thriller era. I think I read 13 books this month, and yep, 12 of them are thrillers. Let's just get into it. You're gonna get so many good recommendations though, because I read tons of good books. First up is The Hunting Wives by Cobb. I wish I could read this book again. It was so fun. It was so ridiculous. But basically this girl, Sophie, moves to this new small town in Texas, and there is this group of very rich moms who kind of form this like Mean Girls circle, and the head of the Mean Girls is a woman named Margot, and she's the most beautiful, she's the most rich, they're all obsessed with her, and somehow Sophie gets invited to one of their little hangouts. So she goes to it, and it turns out their little hangout sessions happen to be shooting skeet with shotguns, so you're kind of like, this is really weird. She keeps hanging out with them, she keeps getting obsessed with Margot, who I was picturing as Margot Robbie the whole time. It was like perfect in my brain, and she continues to hang out with them, and things just start to get weirder and darker. And I recommend not reading the synopsis on the back because something that happens doesn't happen for like 200 pages, and I didn't know it was gonna happen. It was a nice surprise, but then the plot twist at the end was shocking and hilarious and just amazing. So I think I originally gave this 4.5 stars, but in my brain I kind of remember it as a 5-star book, so I highly recommend it. It was just addicting to read. Thriller recommendation number 1, The Hunting Wives. Then I read Every Last Secret by A.R. Tor because I saw it on a Goodreads Choice Awards nominee, and this one is also about a couple who moves in next door to this other very wealthy couple, and basically you're getting 2 perspectives from each wife who live next to each other, and one of them is absolutely insane and will do anything to like get money basically. The wife who moves in next door is crazy, and she tries to steal the husband of the girl next door because he's more rich. You kind of just like are in the brain of that girl, so it's literally insane. This book almost made me queasy at times because of how morally despicable it was, but that's kind of the point of the book, is that you're seeing from a perspective of like an evil person, and it's so weird and it's so messed up. But again, it was so addicting to read, and I remember at the time of reading this really loving it and giving it 5 stars, which now I feel like in my brain I would give this book 5 stars and this one a 4.5 or 4 stars. So I really need to stop rating books right after I read them because it's never correct of how I remember it. But then I read My Summer Darlings by Cobb because it's her new book, and I really loved her first one that I read by her. So I was so excited to read this one because the premise is kind of similar to all these other ones. We've got rich moms in a neighborhood, and then this very attractive man moves in, and he's single. And this really reminds me of the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. These books remind me of each other so much because in this one, a very attractive man moves into the neighborhood and he actually ends up being an evil vampire, which is not a spoiler. And in this one, you basically get flash forwards of someone getting murdered. This book was just it was so bad. Like everything was so unrealistic, and for some reason, all of these wives just start leaving their entire families, their husbands, and they're obsessed with this man, but you don't, like, we aren't given reasons as to why they're so obsessed with him or why they'd be willing to give up everything for this man that they've just met like a few days ago. And then by the end, you already know exactly what's gonna happen. So there was like no suspense, no tension, and it all just felt very stupid, honestly. I give this book 2 stars. It was so disappointing. Okay, here's like the one not thriller book I read this month. The Start of Me and You by Emery. This is a contemporary romance young adult novel. It was kind of thick. This is about a girl in high school who she had a boyfriend die the year before, and so now everyone in this small town kind of looks at her as like the girl whose boyfriend died, and she really hates it, and she's really put herself back into this shell. So she makes kind of a list of things that she wants to do, like join a club, date a boy, get over her fear of swimming, all these things. And it was actually so wholesome. Like, I really enjoyed it. I will say I think it dragged on a little bit. Like, it could have been a bit shorter because this book is almost 400 pages, but I have the sequel to the book, and I could definitely see myself getting in the mood to read that kind of book. If you're in the mood to read something like this, of just like a girl who's trying to integrate back into the world and experience new things, it was so fun and so wholesome and sweet. So I really liked this. I gave this 4 stars, and I don't really read contemporary that much. Okay, next I read The Lifeguards by Amanda Eyre Ward. As you can see, beautiful cover, and this is actually set in Austin, so I thought that was so fun, and I really wanted to read a book by this author because she also wrote The Jet Setters, and she always just has the cutest covers. But on Goodreads, her books are always given like 3-star rating averages, and I just really wanted to see for myself. So this is a mystery about a group of moms whose sons are lifeguards for the summer, and one day they come home basically saying that they've found a dead body, and and none of the moms know how involved their child was in this event, who's guilty, and obviously all the moms will do whatever it takes to keep secrets hidden up, especially if it means their son going to jail. This was told in the third person perspective and from a bunch of different POVs, so it was really difficult to get into at first. I wanted to DNF it, but then after like 150 pages, it actually got really interesting and I really liked the ending of it, so I think I gave this 4 stars. I would honestly say this is like a 3.75, which is still really good, but it was just so slow to get into. I don't love the third person perspective. This was fun. This was good. This was fun. Next, I read One of Us is Dead by Geneva. This author wrote The Perfect Marriage, which I have not read, but I know that one is really popular. This one is so ridiculous, but so fun. As you can see, it's told by different perspectives. Who you're really following is the owner of this salon, where she does all of the rich moms in this neighborhood. She gives them hair treatments, nail treatment, just like every beauty treatment you could ever think of. She does that for them, and this place is kind of a hangout spot for all of them. So she hears all the gossip, all the drama, and this book is the most ridiculous, over the top. This could never happen. They are so bratty, so catty, so rude to each other, like no one would ever say that to your face in real life type of scenario. But because it's so like crazy and fictionalized, it's almost just so fun. And for some reason, this book in particular really sticks out to me for the ending, because I just really remember the ending very well. I feel like this book is probably inspired a little bit by Big Little Lies, so if you like that vibe, then this book was just so over the top. I gave it 3 stars because I feel like it's just not that quality of a book, and I wasn't flying through it like I thought I would. So I don't know, I feel like I got a little bit suffocated halfway through the plot, because it was like, okay, we're only in this one salon for so long, but it was so ridiculous and so fun. So if you just want to like have your jaw on the floor because of how ridiculous, then I highly recommend this one. Ooh, this next one. This next book is making it, you can see it in the corner. This next book is The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. It's his new thriller book, and he is huge in the thriller space, and this was the first one I ever read by him, actually. This book has made it to my 6-star top tier list of books ever on a 5-star scale, meaning 6 is above 5 stars. I absolutely love this book with every fiber of my being. It is the craziest book you'll ever read. The plot twists are absolutely insane. I was having whiplash by how many plot twists there were, and not only that, even the parts that were mundane and you're just building up to the suspense. I loved all the characters. I loved the setting and the POV of seeing through this girl's eyes, where she's just a lonely widowed woman sitting at her lake house spying on a glass house across the lake at this other rich couple, and something about the scenes where she is spying on them with the binoculars was so vivid in my brain. Like this whole book feels like a movie in my brain because of how vividly I could see it, and it felt like I was watching the scenes in my head, and that's just what a good book does to you, I feel like. And it's so interesting because this is the most polarizing book I've ever seen. Like there are so many horrible reviews on Goodreads. I honestly don't even recommend looking up reviews if you want to read this book, because it was the first time that I looked at Goodreads and I was like, I genuinely do not think we read the same book because of how different our experiences were. So I don't know, I am new to thriller mystery, but like I read a ton this month, and this one is still like so good to me. So I get so excited to see everyone read this because I want to see everyone's opinions since it is so polarizing. But if you read any book from this video, read The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. Also, I made a video on my main channel reading 7 thrillers in 7 days, so if you haven't seen that, that one's really fun. Next, I read In My Dreams I Hold a Knife by Ashley Winstead. This is one of those dark academia, 6 found friends, and one person is murdered, and you don't know who it is. This was so good. It's basically them coming back together after 10 years at the reunion. Are you getting different POVs? Then, now, freshman year, senior year, present, all these different things, but you're following through the perspective of Jessica. And that was super interesting because Jessica is super concerned with appearances, and she wants to go to this reunion to come off as the perfect person, that she has her life together, the best out of everyone. And it's just so interesting to get a perspective like that, where it's clearly like she's struggling with this perfectionism and how much she cares about people, but seeing through that perspective and you're just getting like her raw thoughts is just something I love so much about books, because those are like honest things that you would never just hear someone tell you that they struggle with, you know? So that was really fascinating, and the end of this book was also very fascinating. That is like a very vivid scene in my brain that I remember. So I gave this like 4.5 stars. 2 of my favorite booktubers gave it 5 stars, so I really wanted to like love it just as much, but I feel like because of reading If We Were Villains and The Secret History, which are basically the exact same plot, but loving the characters more in those books, this one being the 3rd one that I read, I couldn't help but compare the 6 characters. But the writing of this book is super good. So she has a new thriller coming out this month. It seems kind of scary though, so we'll see if I read that, but I really do like her writing, so 4.5 stars. The next book I read was The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. I read The Guest List by Lucy Foley, which is what got me into this thriller mess, and this one is set in a Paris apartment. You're getting 5 different people's POVs, and basically this girl wants to go live with her brother Ben for a little bit in Paris because she's in between jobs, she's struggling a little bit, but when she shows up, Ben has mysteriously disappeared, and she starts to interview and interrogate all the different people who live in this apartment, and they're all being super sketchy, so she decides she needs like figure out where her brother is. The vibes were great in this book, you know, definitely like a stormy day read and very fun because the chapters were short, the characters are very interesting, but I will say it got a little repetitive and boring like 75% of the way through because there weren't that many reveals happening. Up until the very, very end, it felt like it was just all build up until like 90% of the book, and then they give you all the end. Whereas like some of the thrillers I like this one, for example, it was already revealing stuff like on page 2 and then page 50 and page 150, and like it just keeps going. Whereas this one is just like all tension, but the payoff was really good. My jaw and heart stopped at one of the lines at the end. So it was super good. I loved the reveal of what was happening. It was shocking. I couldn't guess it, but I will say it's a little bit, that's the one reason I'm not giving it 5 stars, because of how kind of mundane and repetitive it got. This is a solid 4-star book if you want a fast-paced thriller. But if you want a 5-star thriller book, kind of a similar premise, honestly. This is Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. Before I read thrillers, I would get these two confused, but this one is about a girl who needs a job, and she sees this offer on like Craigslist or something that she can stay in this super luxurious apartment called the Bartholomew for 3 months just to babysit it, and she'll get paid $12,000. So it makes no sense. It's like her dream to live in this apartment, and she'll get paid just for living there. It's a crazy deal, so obviously she takes it, but very quickly things start going horribly, and you're getting flashes to the present where she's like in some hospital room, and she's like, I'm never going back to the Bartholomew, and you have no idea why. And then one of the other apartment babysitters goes missing, so she starts to interrogate why that person went missing and the history of the Bartholomew and all of these crazy things, and the book just gets crazier and crazier and crazier into the huge reveal at the end. And this book was just so good, and the vibes of this book was so good, which is what I'm talking about, because sometimes you have like a mundane vibe in a thriller when they're just gathering information, but the setting and the characters, it makes it not boring, which is what this book did so well. So I gave this 5 stars. It was so fun, and the reveal was insane. Survive the Night by Riley Sager, which people love to hate this book because basically it's set in the 90s, and we have this girl whose best friend just got killed by a college campus serial killer, and she needs to like leave town because she just does not feel well living at this college. And so she goes to this is kind of the confusing part, but then I remembered we were in the 90s here, and I was like, okay, this is interesting. They go to this board to like find other people who need to carpool, and she finds this random guy to carpool with on an hours-long road trip, and then that's basically the plot of the book. You're just in this car with this random stranger, and as she's learning things about him, she's starting to believe that he is the serial killer. And another big thing about this book is that the main character is obsessed with movies, so if you love movies and you love movie references, you would love this book. I am that person who like never understands a single movie reference, so that didn't really do anything for me. But yeah, I mostly listened to this on audio until like 75% of the way through, when I was getting kind of confused because the chapters are broken up by like interior, Grand Am, night, and this is how stupid I am. I didn't understand that they were referring to cars until like 90% of the book was over, okay? Until I actually got to physically read the book. So sometimes that's a little bad with audiobooks, things just go over my head, but this book was so entertaining. I don't know why people hate on it so much. I thought people were gonna hate it because it's just like a cut and dry, oh, I know exactly what's gonna happen, but no, I did not guess what was gonna happen at all. There was definitely plot twists. I gave this book 3 stars, but now I really just wonder if I read this and didn't listen to it on audiobook, if my rating would have been way higher. I really don't know. So I'm gonna give it 3.5 stars because I thought it was purely very entertaining and very fun, and it's a really good book. I just love his writing. It's so good. Next, I read 4 Aunties and a Wedding.
Sorry.
Ryan made eye contact with me, and it like took me out of my flow completely. Also, I just want to say this is the closest I have ever followed a TBR in my life. So if you haven't seen my July TBR, you should watch that and then watch this, because I read almost all of the books that I said I would, except for 3. One of them I did read, but I just finished it in August, so you'll see that. But this is the sequel to Dial A for Auntie, which I loved. Gave it 5 stars. It's what you call a cozy mystery, I believe, because it's like a very lighthearted, just funny, good guy gets away with murder on accident, but it's not like evil or scary or gory or anything like that. It's just all fun and games, you know? So this is the sequel. I love the Asian family because I have an Asian family. I have 5 Asian aunts. This is so fun. You get the gist of why I loved it, right? This is a sequel. I'm so excited. This one, she's actually gonna have her wedding with her sweetheart that she fell in love with, and it turns out that the people that they hired to cater their wedding are in the mafia, and they're trying to get away with murder at their wedding. And I have never been so disappointed in a sequel in my entire life. Usually sequels get better because you already know the characters in the world and you fall in love with them. And this, I feel like if I say that, it's so harsh. But this did kind of feel like a cash grab to me of like, okay, the first book did well and it was just supposed to be a book, like a standalone book. And then she like tried to make it another book and it ruined everything. It ruined all the characters that I love. Caricatures in this one, not like real people. It ruined, there's like not really any romance. There was no suspense for me the whole time. Like it was actually like pulling teeth to get through this book, and it was less less than 300 pages. So this is like a 2-star. Wish I never read it. Wish she never wrote the sequel to it, honestly. But hey, some people might enjoy it. But that's me being harsh for the first time in this video, so there's that. And the last book I read, Final Girls by Riley Sager, which was probably the scariest thriller I read in all of these, because honestly, most of these thriller books are not scary. I don't really like to read scary books, so if you don't either, these will not like scare you too bad, I don't think, but this one was scary because this was more slasher vibes to me. Because basically, if you don't know what a final girl is, because I didn't know what that was, it's basically the last survivor in a tragic event, but it's like the term was created from horror movies, like whoever the one girl who survived it is called the final girl. So you have 3 final girls in this book, one of them being Quincy, another one being Lisa, and Lisa is found dead in her bathtub, and so they start to investigate why, and then it seems as if this book is actually so difficult to explain. One of the other final girls comes to stay with her and like become friends because they've never actually met in person, and then they start doing some weird things together, and then you find something else out about Lisa, the other final girl, and then they're like, oh no, are we in danger? Are people trying to kill the final girls? And this book just gets so crazy, and you keep getting flashbacks to when the very scary event happened to Quincy, which was kind of like a slasher event, honestly, of all of her friends getting killed except for her. That's what made this book so scary. This one was like the scariest one out of all of them, and a little too scary for me, but I think I gave this 5 stars. 4.5 stars. It was really good. It's like a really good book, but only if you like scary thrillers. This one made me feel unsettled after a little bit, you know? And that is all the books that I read, which is so funny because that was like a very intense thriller, which makes me want to go back to reading next month some cute little summer romances to end August, some fantasy, some romance, maybe finish the Shatter Me series, maybe start up the Throne of Glass series again. Who knows what I'll do. Let me know what your favorite book was of the month and what you plan on reading next month, or AKA right now, because we're in August. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok. I post lots of reading updates and stuff, and then also my main channel to watch those videos. I love you so much. Goodbye.